Get started in about 2 minutes.
All right.
And if you haven't already, if you can put your name, your district, and your role in the chat, that would be wonderful. All right, my computer says 7 o'clock, so we're gonna start on time and end early. So welcome, we are so excited to have you here for our very first virtual office hours as literacy consultants. We're excited to continue to host these Zooms. We're gonna do them on the third Tuesday of the month, and the series is going to be called Leaning In. So we'll just have a variety of topics that we're going to kind of focus on as the year progresses. If you haven't done so already, if you could take a moment and introduce yourself in the chat, and the bit.ly link's on the bottom of the screen, and we can also put it in the chat. Last little tidbit, we are recording this webinar, so just wanted you to be aware of that. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. There we go. So as we're getting started, we're really thinking of tying our work with the SEL competencies, and one of those competencies is self-awareness. So as we get started tonight, we want to do a quick temperature check. So if you could take a look and rate yourself on a scale to cat, how are you feeling right now? So if you could put in the chat your number and why you picked that number. Kelsey, you want to call out some of those responses?
I sure will. We have a 3. Tina says 5. Couple 5s. 2, yeah, same. A little scared of doing our first webinar. I agree.
Right? Yeah, for sure. So this is something that, I mean, you can use for yourself. You can also use this with your students. It's just a good, you know, how are we feeling as we're starting some new learning tonight. So now I'm going to introduce myself. I'm excited to be here for our first webinar. My name is Kelly Wesley. I'm a literacy consultant and I serve Region 3. I'll let my co-host introduce herself.
I'm Kelsey Bowers, and I'm also literacy consultant for Region 7, which is just Waterloo School District.
And then we are also very fortunate to have Dana Miller, our lead for well-being. And so if we have some questions, she'll She'll be able to hop in and answer those because we are not experts in this area. We just thought that this was a timely topic for us to cover. And so she's here to support us throughout this webinar as well. Just a few Zoom keeping notes. So if you can make sure that you're on mute. We would also love to see your faces. We know it's kind of late at night, so you might have other things going on, but if you can have your video on, it makes it so much better when we can see the participants. And then if you have questions, comments, or discussion points, feel free to drop those in the chat. We'll be monitoring those as we go. Also, if you ask a question and we don't know the answer, we have your email, so we'll be able to follow up with you later. So thinking of our structure for tonight, we're going to do some information sharing and some content for the first probably about 30 minutes. And then we're going to reserve the last 30 minutes or however long we need for a Q&A. So where are we going tonight? Our goal for tonight, our learning intention, is that we're learning to take care of ourselves, myself, as I engage with students. And our success criteria, so at the end of this webinar, we hope that you can see the positive and even negative situations. You can identify, recognize, and name your emotions in the moment. You can stay calm, clear-headed, and unflappable under high stress and during a crisis. And you can balance work life with personal renewal. So those are pretty lofty goals. Maybe you'll have some strategies to do those things. So to kick us off, you may have seen this before, but it's worth showing again. It provides just a little bit of levity when we think about kind of where we're at in our current situation. So as you watch, feel free to write in the chat anything that connects with you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Khalid Mumin, and welcome to the 2020-2021 school year. As we all know, we are living in unprecedented times, and I believe it's appropriate for me to begin with one of my favorite poems, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could.
I got this stuck. Have you heard of Kid President? Well, I'm Kid Superintendent, and I think we all need a pep talk. Testing. The past couple of months haven't been easy, huh? A global pandemic, politics, social unrest, earthquakes, firenadoes, Tiger King! Rah! That show is not what I thought it was about. Your glasses plugging up when you wear a mask. Fighting over toilet paper? The unmute button! You're on mute! Spider winterflies, desert locusts, and murder hornets. I mean, where did those even come from, man? You get the idea. 2020 has been kicking our butts. I can say butts, right? It's okay to feel overwhelmed right now, or anxious, or nervous about remote learning. Your Bitmojis look awesome, by the way. Maybe you're worried about students. I'm worried about myself and everybody else. But remember, we're all doing the best we can, and that's all that matters. Kids aren't looking for perfection. We're just looking for you to be present. I know that because I'm a kid. So let's be good humans. Unless if you're an insect or blowfish. And sprinkle kindness. By the way, I hate sprinkles. And let's give each other grace, not grief. We're all in this together. And we've got to support each other. And hugs! But you know this already because that's what people do. You're resilient and resourceful. When times get tough, you know how to pull together. No cap. And there's still plenty of good stuff in the world, right? Like cinnamon toast crunch. I see. And Lizzo, my mom likes her music a lot. A lot. And funny TikTok videos. And Sharpie, you gotta love those. And we've got you. You are good. Those scraps that you are great. We need you here. No matter your job, you each have something special and amazing to offer. You can do virtually anything. Get it? Virtually? It's a joke. Seriously, you can do this. You are the champion Rita Pearson was talking about. I believe in you, and I know you'll stay RSD proud no matter the distance. It's kind of like Doc was trying to say. Two roads diverged in a wood, and right now we gotta take the one less traveled. You know, uncharted territory and all. I know it might get a little scary, actually a lot scary. But you got this. Put on your favorite fuzzy socks. No one can see your feet on Google Meets, but definitely still wear your pants. And press forward with a positive attitude. It's gonna make all the difference.
Pause it. Can't continue. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide. So that was just a little pep talk. And at the end, Kids Superintendent said, we need you here. And that's what this is about. Educators, like, we have to take care of ourselves so that we can be there for students. So that's what we're gonna focus in on. And I'm gonna pass it over to Kelsey to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing in the chat, just being present, being a good human, maybe a few tears. It's overwhelming all that we've been through. And if you look at this next slide, Education Elements released this, and I just think it's so true. We had school and life really as we knew it, and that was our fundamental. And then all of a sudden this pandemic hits, plus all the other things happening in our world, and that's a big disruption. And so where we're headed is really messy. And so one of the ways that we have to think about moving forward is through educator self-care. So we have that as kind of the end goal here. If you want to go to the next slide. So self-care, why self-care? A lot of you have probably heard the airplane analogy. This isn't something that's old, something you hear quite often, but this is just to remind you of that remember that the advice is that we put on our own oxygen mask first before we can assist others. And this isn't that to mean that we put on our own oxygen mask and then don't help anyone else. This isn't about being selfish by any means. But the fact is, if you're responsible for other people, either as a teacher, a school leader, maybe a direct service provider, or even as a parent or a caregiver, you have a responsibility to take care of yourself first. There's nothing selfish about it. In the event that the oxygen mask drops on an airplane, the first person to put on their oxygen mask is the pilot. And that's not selfish, right? If the pilot doesn't do that, the plane is going to crash. We don't hear the flight attendant say, put on your own oxygen mask and then ignore everyone, right? We know that we're still going to do all that we're going to do, and because we're givers. And so really it's just about not pouring from an empty cup. So as teachers or as educators working in schools, we've always been demanded a lot. We're on all of the time, socially, emotionally, physically. We put a lot of care into the world, and COVID-19 and all of the other things happening in our world is added to the anxiety and the unrest you might feel. So really it just means doing what you need to do to take care of yourself so your help is more effective. So self-care allows us to not only survive, but thrive. So the Compassion Fatigue Awareness Project, they've been around a while, and they define this professional quality of life. And that's the quality one feels in relation to their work as a helper. And so this work has been always known in kind of the healthcare and the social services field, first responders, and more recently they're looking at educators as one and the same to this professional quality of life. So really it's just anyone who helps others. And so in this professional quality of life, we have compassion satisfaction and we have compassion fatigue. And those are two aspects of having a professional quality of life. They're the good stuff, the positive, and then the negative. Both aspects influence how you perceive your quality of life. And understanding the aspects can help you to kind of balance those. So if you want to go to the next slide, this one talks about what is compassion satisfaction. Well, obviously it's the positive aspects of our job. It's the pleasure we feel from doing our work, and especially when we do it well, when we know we're making a difference. On the other hand, we have compassion fatigue. These are the negative aspects that we feel, which concerns things like exhaustion, frustration, anger, depression, which lead to burnout, right? Or even traumatic stress. So just some statistics. In a study conducted by the Learning Policy Institute, this was before COVID in 2017, not surprisingly so, they found that 85% of teachers experience a work-life balance. And we've known that that leads to retention issues, that burnout, where we have 30% of our teachers leaving the profession within the first 5 years. Now, during COVID, another study, this was the National Bureau of Economic Research. They looked across a wide range of professions and industries. And during COVID, they found that our work days were longer by almost 50 minutes. Our meetings increased by 13%. And we were sending nearly 1.5 times more emails. Again, not surprising, but this illustrates that the symptoms that lead to burnout are only increasing right now. And that will be true of educators, educators teaching in person, virtually, or some combination, and any other of those helper fields. So self-care is more critical now than ever in these pretty uncertain times. So Yale and Castle, they also launched a survey at the end of March during COVID to unpack the emotional lives of teachers in the pandemic. And they were asked to describe in their own words the most frequent emotions that they felt each day. Not surprising, you heard words like anxious, fearful, worried, overwhelmed, and sad. And anxiety was the highest, most frequently mentioned emotion. And those are the emotions that lead to compassion fatigue, that burnout. And in a previous study, teachers were asked what they want to feel. And you can see that these are the things that lead to compassion satisfaction: happy, inspired, valued, supported. So the way to get there is we have to really care for ourselves in a way that we can persevere in a world that's often hostile and overwhelming, because we're in a very vital profession. So self-care, again, it's not self-indulgent, but it's an act of survival. And it's a place where we can not only survive, but thrive, as I mentioned earlier, because in essence, we're far less effective in helping others if we work ourselves to the point of burnout or illness. So now that we've kind of situated self-care within the context of this professional quality of life, I'm going to turn it back over to Kelly, and she's going to speak about how this is situated within our SEL competencies.
So we just wanted to share this graphic as self-care is linked to the social emotional learning competencies with Castle. The competencies aren't just for students. They're for school leaders, staff, and adults. So if you just look at that and those and this graphic, it really does connect to that self-care. Today we're really focusing in on self-awareness and self-management, because we need to be able to do these things to take care of ourselves so we can take care of our families, take care of our students, because it's just, there's some really important aspects of our work, but it also ties back to the work that we do with students in the classroom. That's weird. Oh, I clicked on something. Okay, just a minute. It's just one.
That graphic links to the self-assessment.
So if you're ever interested in taking that self-assessment, I got to get back to my screen here, then, and this, all of these slides are in that bit.ly link, so you will have access to those. I'm going to share again. Okay, now before we start this video, I want everybody to take a moment and write in the chat, how do you care for yourself when you've had an upsetting or stressful day? So just take a minute and write in the chat how you care for yourself when you've had an upsetting or stressful day.
Going to bed, I'm seeing, walking, yep, exercise, music, maybe your favorite snack, taking a bath, yes, Netflix.
Awesome. Yeah, so we all have some strategies. Now we're going to watch a video from the 2020 Teachers of the Year on practicing self-care.
What are some of the ways that you practice self-care?
I don't. Oh boy.
That's definitely a skill I need to get better at.
Self-care is hard, especially in this profession.
However, my focus has been to get outside more, do more engagement with our environment.
Cranking up the tunes in the kitchen. I'm cooking something delicious for my family.
There is more to life than just work, even if you really enjoy your career a lot, like we do.
I don't grade papers at home. I don't check my email very much at home, and I'm a better teacher when I have established healthy boundaries with work and leave work at work.
So one of the ways that I practice self-care is being able to say no. Sometimes you have to be able to take a step back and refresh before going on to that next project.
1 minute meditations. I just close my eyes, take a deep breath, and try not to think too much about what happens. And when I open my eyes, I feel much better.
Try to turn your brain off and let it be quiet sometimes.
Disconnecting from technology and distractions and spending time with the people that I love the most.
Before you assist others with the oxygen mask, assist yourself first. I like to exercise and be with my family, but yeah, assist yourself before assisting others.
I think it's really important to give myself the time to be creative. Even actually really digging in and researching is creative for me.
I play piano in the evenings. I read a book. I try to take time that is both being still and also being active.
Spending time in prayer, practicing yoga, or even spending time outdoors, like going boonie stomping around the jungles of Guam.
Fresh air and movement are key to restoring my sanity and perspective.
I get up before anybody in my family when it's still dark outside, and I go to the gym on some mornings, or I go just sit and have some quiet time to myself.
Or I am going for a walk, or I'm reading a book, or I'm taking a nap on the weekend.
I practice self-care by traveling. Sometimes it's good to get out of our bubble.
My best mode of self-care is to learn from my students. I've learned patience, I've learned empathy, I've learned the latest dance move.
To reach out to other teachers, share experiences, and have somebody to bounce ideas off of. It rejuvenates you and helps you reignite that passion for teaching.
I love how they laughed at the beginning of practicing self-care, because I think that's so true. And I want to go boonie stomping. I think that's what she said, in Guam. That might be kind of amazing. That seems like it'd be some awesome self-care. So now we're going to move on to some specific strategies. But before we move on to this next piece of learning, I want us to really think about how important it is to know yourself. Self-care is going to look different for everyone. It's about knowing yourself and what makes you happy, brings you joy, makes you feel taken care of, and makes you feel at peace. Those Teachers of the Year all have lots of different ways that they practice self-care. So as we share these next few strategies, just think of if any of those connect to you. If not, there's tons out there, and in the bit.ly link here, there's lots of resources in our notes. So, and there's going to be a slide with resources as well. There's just a lot out there. So our first strategy is practicing gratitude. This connects to our self-awareness. We can see the positive even in negative situations. So in his article, Why Gratitude is Good, Robert Emmons highlights 4 important reasons to practice gratitude. First, gratitude allows us to be in the present. Next, gratitude blocks negative emotions such as envy, resentment, regret, emotions that can destroy our happiness. They're mutually exclusive. If we're feeling grateful, we can't be feeling negative emotions. Another benefit Emmons noted was grateful people are more stress resistant. Wouldn't that be awesome if we could be stress resistant? Finally, grateful people have higher self-worth. So there's lots of advantages to practicing gratitude. A study showed that if you take 2 minutes to write down 3 new things you are grateful for 21 days, your brain retains a pattern of scanning the world not for negative, but for positive. So take 2 minutes for 21 days and write down 3 things that you're grateful for, and our brain actually changes and starts looking for the good, which would be absolutely amazing. So right now we're gonna do a little active engagement, and we want you to take a moment. If you want to, you can do it in the chat. If not, write it down on a piece of paper, but write down 3 things that you are grateful for.
While you're doing that, it made me think of Brene Brown's work. She talked about how if you're not in the habit of necessarily writing it down all the time, think about every time you're at a stoplight, naming 3 things while you're waiting at that stoplight. Just a habit to kind of get into as well.
If you're done, if you could give me a thumbs up or use the thumbs up icon. I'm going to give you enough time because it is important that we are practicing that gratitude. Awesome. Thank you. So this is for us. This is our, our educator self-care session, but we are also teachers. So this is another thing, like you could totally use this in the classroom and have kids do this. There's this little graphic on here that has lots of different ways that you can do it. A gratitude jar, a journal, say thank you, smile. Like there's just so many ways that practicing gratitude can happen. Okay, our next strategy is square breathing. Page turn here. And this one connects with our I can statement for staying calm, clear-headed, and unflappable under high stress and during a crisis, which I would say we're kind of still in that COVID crisis. And just as we want our students to be self-aware with their feelings and able to manage our emotions, we want to be able to do that as well. So when we start to feel overwhelmed or stressed, there are strategies that we can engage in that will help us regulate those emotions. So this is one of them. This one's called square or box breathing. You can use it for yourself or you can use it with your students. So what you do is you inhale for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 4, and you hold for a count of 4. So while you're doing this strategy, you imagine that square. You can imagine that visual. You know what? And like, if this was one that connected with me, I might even post a little square in my office or a square in my classroom so I could be reminded that when I'm, have something stressful happen to me or I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, I can absolutely take a moment and do some square breathing. So we are going to practice this strategy. So in a moment, I'm going to kind of walk us through this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and, I got to wait till our square gets to the right place. So we're going to inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Let's try it one more time. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let you watch the little guy go around and we can all do it together. Okay, we're going to go in 2 seconds. Don't you feel better already? It just kind of grounds you into being more calm. So that's another strategy that you can use. I think that if you search square breathing, you could totally find this graphic online as well. So next I'm going to share a strategy of setting routines, which might seem like a small strategy, but it really is huge when it comes to self-care. So as I share some ideas for setting routines, I know that you all probably have other ideas and strategies, and I'd love for you to share in the chat any strategies or ideas that you have for maintaining that work-life balance. So whether it's in school or at a distance, setting routines are very useful for us as they help us organize, plan, and predict. They help us self-manage by balancing work life with personal renewal time. So no matter where we are working, it can be challenging to separate work and life. So if we're face-to-face or even at home, this is one that can be tricky. So let's start in the morning. So morning routines could include going for a walk, making yourself breakfast. You could even open up all the blinds and turn on the lights. Keeping that routine can help you feel more prepared for the day. So the same can be said for that end of the day. When working from home, create an end of the day routine. If you don't have an office, perhaps you want to shut down your computer and put all your things away. If you're at school or you're traveling places, take that drive home to reflect on the day, knowing that once you arrive at your destination, it's time for life. Then think back on our first strategy of practicing gratitude. Wouldn't that be a great routine to start either right at the beginning of the day or right at the end of the day? Just write down those 3 things that you're grateful for and make that part of your routine. The last thing to really think about is easier said than done, but maintaining regular hours to ensure that you're really balancing that life and work. So when I was teaching, I devoted every Thursday night. I knew that I was going to stay as late as I needed to get all of my work done, because then each night, the rest of the week, I didn't have to stay. I could go home knowing that I was prepared. So, you know, even if you have to pick one day to make sure your stuff gets done, do that just one day and then give yourself the grace the rest of the time to go home and balance that with your life. So, were there any other ideas in the chat, Kelsey?
No, I don't see anything, but
super groundbreaking.
Coffee helps, my opinion.
Yes. Yep, that's a good routine too. All right, our last step here. Now we're going to do some planning for self-care. As we near the end of our learning, we want you to make a commitment to yourself to plan for self-care. So right now, write in your phone, on a sticky note, what are 1 or 2 things you're going to implement going forward to prioritize your self-care? So 1 or 2 things you're going to implement going forward to prioritize your self-care. Give you a minute to do that. If you want to do that thumbs up again, that was super helpful for me to know. Okay. Looks like mostly everyone's done. So, and let's really face it, self-care doesn't happen in a vacuum. We're all in this together, and there are lots of ways that we can support each other. So, you know, if you see somebody having a stressful day, there are lots of things that you can do to help support them as well. So this is just a great Brene quote. Talk to yourself like you would like you would to someone you love. So this applies to both how we speak to and how we treat ourselves. Be gentle with yourself. There is no I should. Should is an invented concept that is employed to cause us to feel shame. When we tell ourselves that we should be doing something, we're reinforcing the negative and the fact that we are not doing it. So give yourself grace. This is hard. Okay, and that concludes. I am going to run to this last slide here, just so you know, there's some resources here that I want to highlight. We have a whole well-being site on our Central Rivers AEA website. There's the CASA website. There's some really great podcasts out there, and then just some articles. Oh, and before we go to Q&A, I want to get to this too. Join us on Tuesday. We'd love for you to come back, October 20th. This time we're going to try 4 p.m. And our leaning in topic for our next webinar virtual hour series will be connecting with students. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop sharing and go to see if there's any questions. And you can either unmute or put it in the chat. Yes, I can go back to the last slide. Let me reshare. This one?
Go back one more, Kelly.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to like manage.
I put the link to the slides again in the chat, so you have those and you can.
Just a moment. It's giving me a second. It's giving me a hard time.
Can we send you an email if we need some information?
Absolutely. The final slide has all of our emails again.
It's not letting me go back. Let me take 2. Okay.
While we have Dana on here too, Dana, is there anything you would add or maybe even say about the well-being site that might be worth pointing out while we're all together?
Sure. Well, first I want to say that you guys did an amazing job, which I'm certain the participants probably agree with. There's a lot of great information there. So the well-being site, which is that first site that's linked, is for educators, whether you're administrators, teachers, whomever within the school. And then we also have aspects for parents. So we are still building the self-care section. There are a few things within it, but I wanted to just point out a few other things. The professional learning that we offer through the Central Rivers is there on the professional learning link. But when you're working with students and if you are struggling with helping to identify their social emotional needs or mental health needs, if there's challenging behaviors, there are toolkits within each one of those categories that are on that right-hand side of the screen where you can see the COVID resources and supports, autism, challenging behavior, mental health, MTSS for well-being, and so on. That really, you can go in there and you could click any of the topics. I don't know who is sharing the screen. Is it you, Kelsey?
Kelly.
I am.
Kelly? Kelly,
Yep.
could you click on, say, mental health, for example?
Yep.
Thank you. So then if you scroll down, I appreciate it. On that right-hand side, you can see on that right there. Yep. You can see there's an administrator toolbox, an educator toolbox, parent and family, and then some for professional school counselors, and then one for students. And this houses some selected resources. I know you guys get stuff thrown at you a lot because is a lot out there. So selected resources that are the most comprehensive to help you address any questions that you may have as you are navigating and working with your students. On the very bottom of that right-hand side, you will see the social and emotional learning. Kelsey and Kelly did a great job of explaining what those 5 competency areas are. The Iowa SEL competencies are in there as well, if you wanted to dig in and learn more about that, as well as that self-assessment that I think Kelly went to maybe inadvertently, but I think it's incredibly awesome that you did because that is a great tool to use to really figure out where am I as an individual within each of these competency areas? Because I got to tell you, depending on the day, the level in which I engage in some of those areas differs significantly, especially when I have been doing things like, I don't know, if you guys are virtually teaching all day or being in Zoom meetings all day, that fatigue is real, in addition to the fatigue when we're there supporting people in person. So when you go through and if you look at that self-assessment and there's an area that you want to improve your skills in to get some more practice, there are suggestions of what we can do there as well. So there is an abundance of information with that site, not only resources for you as educators, but also for our students and our families, and then obviously for ourselves individually. So I encourage you to go to it, explore. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. We are happy to address anything and anything that may come up. But I thank you, Kelly and Kelsey, for making sure that you shared that source, because I think it's one of those hidden gems that not everybody knows about yet. But we're here for you, and we want to make sure that we're getting everybody what they need across the agency. So one other note, that 4-square breathing, you can literally put that in YouTube, and there's even examples that you can have for the kids. And one of the things I was just chatting with the teacher about the other day was embedding it in their time. So just have a scheduled day, because the teacher needed it just as much as the kids. So there's a scheduled time in each day where they're doing that for a minute, or they're doing a progressive muscle relaxation. But that way everybody is practicing it, and the stress level, and this is only anecdotal, is that there's a lot less tension that seems to be occurring in the classroom, and that the teacher is not feeling as overwhelmed. So just keep that in mind too. There's a lot of ways that we can engage in that self-care even when we're at work.
Thank you, Dana.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop sharing.